Did you know that one Depression-era recipe became so valuable that families pass it down in their wills, right alongside jewelry and land? When a dozen eggs cost half a day's wages, American kitchens didn't just endure, they reinvented cooking forever. Today, with grocery prices soaring 12% higher than ever, these nearly forgotten recipes are making an unexpected comeback. Families using these techniques report saving $4,800 a year, more than their monthly mortgage. In the next 10 minutes, you'll uncover 20 groundbreaking recipes that shaped American history, from a cake that needs no eggs or butter, now viral on TikTok, to a soup so nourishing it kept families alive during medical shortages. These aren't just meals, they're financial lifelines that could slash your grocery bill in half. Let's reveal how Depression-era wisdom is tackling 2024's biggest kitchen challenge, stone soup, a recipe that began as a folktale but became a real survival strategy, tested in America's hardest times. During the Great Depression, as families watched their savings disappear overnight, they discovered that a pot of water could become a feast. It was never about the stone. It was about the skill of turning nothing into something extraordinary. Starting with just water and scraps, families crafted rich, flavorful broths that could feed entire neighborhoods for mere pennies. The magic unfolded as each ingredient gave its essence. Onion peels for depth, potato scraps for thickness, and if lucky, a meat bone for richness. Today, with families wasting $1,500 yearly on discarded food, this humble soup offers a forgotten lesson. A modern pot costs about $3.50 and feeds 8 people, less than 50 cents per serving. Compare that to its Depression-era price of just 15 cents for the whole pot, and it's clear why this recipe has endured. The secret? Patience, allowing each ingredient to infuse the broth, transforming scraps into liquid gold. Modern home cooks using this method report saving up to $125 monthly, simply by giving kitchen scraps a second life. While Stone Soup mastered liquid transformation, our next recipe reveals how Depression-era families turned plain cornmeal into a bread so legendary, it still graces upscale Southern restaurants today. Hot water cornbread became a testament to Southern ingenuity when families had nothing but cornmeal in their pantries. With a crispy outside and tender inside, this 3-ingredient wonder, cornmeal, boiling water, and a pinch of salt, proved that survival could still taste remarkable. It wasn't just simple, it was a lifeline, stretching empty pantries further than anyone thought possible for less than 2 cents per serving. Serving modern versions still cost just 25 cents each, a fraction of store-bought bread's $4.99 price tag. The technique was brilliantly simple. Boiling water poured over cornmeal created an instant dough. When fried into small patties, they transformed into golden discs with an irresistible crunch. Families paired them with beans or crumbled them into milk for a hearty breakfast. Today, with a $2.99 bag of cornmeal yielding 20 servings, this recipe could save modern households up to $80 per month on bread costs. The real magic? It takes just 10 minutes from start to finish, faster than a trip to the store. Speaking of quick transformations, imagine stretching a single egg into a meal for 4. That's exactly what our next recipe achieved, and it's still a staple saving families money across Asia today. Egg drop soup. When eggs were a luxury and meat was scarce, Chinese immigrants shared a survival secret that spread through Depression-era America like wildfire. A single egg, whisked into a pot of seasoned broth, turned into delicate golden ribbons, making every spoonful feel rich and satisfying. During the Depression, this soup cost just 3 cents per bowl. Today, at only 45 cents per serving, it remains one of the most cost-effective, protein-rich meals. The magic unfolds as the egg proteins swirl into the steaming broth, creating a silky, luxurious texture far beyond its humble ingredients. Modern families report saving upwards of $50 per month by replacing just one meat-based dinner a week with this hearty soup can slash grocery bills. Add any vegetables on hand, and you've got a complete meal, costing less than a cup of coffee. If eggs could stretch a meal, wait until you see how the most common vegetable of the era became the foundation of a soup so creamy, people still mistake it for a dairy-based delicacy. Potato soup. When potatoes were often the only vegetable in the cellar, Depression-era cooks unlocked a kind of liquid alchemy. This humble soup delivered creamy richness, without a single drop of cream, just potatoes, water, salt, and the knowledge of perfect timing. By slow cooking the potatoes until they partially broke down, families created a naturally thick, luxurious soup, despite costing just 5 cents per bowl. Modern ingredients cost about $4 total, yet yield 8 to 10 servings, still an incredible value at only 40 cents per bowl. The genius? The potato's natural starch forms a silky base that rivals today's $8 restaurant soups. Home cooks across America report saving up to $140 monthly by mastering this technique, especially when enhanced with leftover vegetables or cheese rinds for depth. Even better, it reheats flawlessly, making it perfect for weekly meal prep. Money was scarce during the Depression, but protein was even scarcer. That's where our next recipe stepped in, turning a handful of oats into a meat dish that fed twice as many mouths. Oatmeal meatloaf. When a single pound of ground beef had to stretch further than ever, Depression-era cooks discovered their secret weapon, oatmeal. This wasn't just any meatloaf. It was financial wizardry on a plate. By blending meat with oats, eggs, and simple seasonings, families could stretching a single pound of beef to feed 8 instead of 4. This Depression-era innovation slashed meat costs in half, from 25 cents to just 12 cents per serving. Today, with ground beef averaging $5.99 per pound, this recipe still works its magic, cutting per person costs from $1.50 to just 75 cents, all while adding fiber and nutrients. The oats don't just extend the meat. They create a tender, juicy texture that holds moisture better than breadcrumbs. Modern budget-conscious families report saving up to $100 monthly by using this technique across various ground meat dishes. Even better, the leftovers make incredible sandwiches, stretching savings even further. But what if you couldn't afford ground beef at all? Our next recipe reveals how resourceful cooks turned every part of the pig into a breakfast delicacy still beloved in Pennsylvania Dutch country. Scrapple. Long before nose-to-tail eating became trendy, Pennsylvania Dutch families mastered it. This breakfast staple transformed pork scraps, cornmeal, and spices into a sliceable loaf that fried up crispy on the outside, tender within. During the Depression, it cost just 3 cents per serving, using parts butchers practically gave away. Today, a homemade version costs about 60 cents per serving, compared to $4.50 for commercial breakfast meats. The magic happens during slow cooking, where scraps break down into a rich broth that thickens with cornmeal. Once chilled, sliced, and fried, it forms a golden crust even skeptics can't resist. Modern families report saving up to $90 monthly by swapping out expensive breakfast meats for this classic dish. While some families had access to pork scraps, others relied on a pantry staple that simmered all day, improving with time. In fact, this next recipe became so popular, it's now a backyard barbecue essential. Baked beans. Navy beans were Depression-era gold, turning pennies into protein-packed meals that could last for days. The secret? Slow cooking with molasses, a splash of mustard, and if lucky, a scrap of salt pork. During hard times, a pot cost just 15 cents and fed 10 people. Today, a homemade batch costs $3.50 total but yields 12 servings. That's only 29 cents per protein-rich portion. The magic unfolds during a 6-hour simmer, where beans absorb deep, smoky flavors while their natural starches create a sauce that rivals any modern barbecue joint's $6 side dish. Budget-conscious families now save approximately $75 monthly by making these from scratch instead of buying conversions, all while getting triple the protein and fiber. When even a single slice of bacon made its way into the kitchen, resourceful cooks knew exactly how to make it feel like a feast. Our next recipe reveals how one strip of bacon transformed into a sandwich, now inspiring gourmet food trucks. Bacon and onion sandwich. When bacon was as rare as gold, one slice had to be stretched through pure ingenuity. This sandwich elevated cheap onions into sweet, caramelized layers, making a single piece of bacon taste like many. During the Depression, it cost just 5 cents per sandwich. Today, 75 cents, compared to $4.50 for a standard BLT. The method was simple but brilliant. slowly cooking onions until golden, then pairing them with crispy bacon bits between toasted bread. The onion's natural sugars intensified the richness, amplifying the bacon's flavor. Modern families report saving $60 monthly using this trick to stretch expensive ingredients. During tough times, even potato peels became treasured ingredients. Our next recipe turned what most people threw away into a snack now served in high-end gastropubs for $12 a plate: fried potato skins. In an era when every scrap meant survival, potato peels transformed from trash to treasure in Depression-era kitchens. They weren't just economical. They revolutionized how families viewed food waste. Clean potato peels, often destined for compost, became crispy, seasoned delicacies through a simple yet ingenious technique. During the Depression, families discovered that frying these peels in a bit of saved bacon fat or oil created a snack just as satisfying as any modern chip. They'd season them with whatever was available: salt, pepper, and sometimes even dried herbs from a garden. The cost? Virtually nothing, since the peels were already part of the potato purchase. Today, while restaurants charge upwards of $12 for loaded potato skins, this homemade version still costs mere pennies. Modern families report saving between $40 and $60 monthly by embracing this waste-reducing technique in their cooking. Even better, these crispy skins pack more nutrients than the potato itself, rich in fiber and minerals that are typically discarded. But the true test of Depression-era ingenuity wasn't just using scraps. It was crafting entire meals from odds and ends. Our next recipe became known as the everything but the kitchen sink stew, and it saved countless families from hunger. Slumgullion. Depression-era kitchens turned desperation into culinary innovation with slumgullion, a one-pot wonder that earned a peculiar name in mining camps but became a lifeline in hard times. Its brilliance? It welcomed anything: meat scraps, wilting vegetables, leftover beans, or even stale during the Depression. One pot of this hearty meal cost just 20 cents and could feed up to 12 people. Today's version averages $5 for a large pot, about 42 cents per serving, compared to $4 to $5 for canned stews. The secret? A carefully layered cooking method, starting with onions to build a deep flavor base, then adding slow-cooking ingredients first, finishing with quick-cooking ones. Each step enhances the richness, turning humble ingredients into a meal that feels anything but simple. Modern families report saving $85 to $100 per month by using this flexible, waste-reducing approach. Most importantly, it taught a timeless lesson. When creativity is applied, nothing ever goes to waste. While Slumgullion turned savory leftovers into a meal, Depression-era bakers discovered something even more astonishing: how to bake a rich chocolate cake without eggs, milk, or butter. This next recipe is currently going viral on social media. Depression cake. When eggs soared to 45 cents per dozen and butter became a luxury, resourceful bakers found a way to create culinary magic. Depression cake, also known as wacky cake or crazy cake, proved that rich, moist chocolate cake was possible without dairy or eggs. The science was ingenious. Vinegar and baking soda worked together to create the perfect rise, while oil replaced butter's moisture. During the Depression, a whole cake cost just 15 cents to bake. Today, about $2.50 total, just 31 cents per slice, compared to $4 to $5 for a bakery cake. The brilliance? It's incredibly simple. Dry ingredients mixed, wet ingredients added, stirred, and baked. No fancy equipment required. Modern bakers save approximately $70 monthly using this recipe for celebrations. Plus, it's accidentally vegan, making it perfect for today's dietary needs. But while some families bake cakes from scratch, others found ways to transform stale bread into a dessert so delicious that high-end restaurants still serve it. Bread pudding. In 1930s kitchens, stale bread wasn't waste. It was an opportunity to create something extraordinary. Bread pudding transformed hardened loaves into a custard-like dessert that rivaled fancy pastries. The magic formula? Cubed stale bread soaked in a simple custard of milk, eggs, sugar, and vanilla. During the Depression, a single pan cost just 18 cents to make. Today, the cost runs about $3 total, 50 cents per serving, versus $8 to $10 at restaurants. The science was flawless. The dry bread absorbed the custard mixture like a sponge, creating a perfect balance between cake and pudding. Modern households report saving up to $65 monthly by using bread destined for the trash to make desserts. Some even grow fresh herbs like mint or lavender, adding gourmet touches that would cost extra at bakeries. While bread pudding rescued yesterday's loaves, another sweet treat used the cheapest sweetener available to create cookies packed with unexpected nutrition: molasses cookies. When sugar became scarce during the Depression, molasses emerged as both a savior and a secret weapon in American kitchens. These cookies weren't just treats. They were clever nutritional powerhouses. A single cup of molasses contained more iron than 3 servings of spinach, making these cookies a necessity for families who couldn't afford fresh produce. The genius? Their simplicity. Flour, molasses, baking soda, and warming spices like ginger and cinnamon. During the Depression, a full batch cost just 10 cents and made 24 cookies. Today, about $2 per batch, just 8 cents per cookie, compared to 35 cents for store-bought varieties. The technique was foolproof. Mix, roll, bake until just set for a chewy, perfectly spiced center. Modern families save up to $60 monthly by baking these instead of buying commercial cookies. And with molasses providing 20% of daily iron needs per serving, they remain a smarter choice than today's empty-calorie treats. Best of all, these cookies stayed fresh for weeks, making them perfect for lunchboxes and after-school snacks. Speaking of smart sweets, our next recipe turned 2 of the cheapest pantry staples into a dessert so comforting. It's making a comeback on today's budget-conscious food blogs. Rice and raisins. During the Great Depression's toughest days, this humble pair became an unlikely hero in American kitchens. It transformed the cheapest grain and dried fruit into a dessert that rivaled the creamiest puddings. The secret lay in slow cooking. Rice simmered until rich and creamy, while raisins plumped into juicy sweetness, creating a natural syrup. During the Depression, a full batch cost just 7 cents and fed 6 people. Today, $1.80 total, just 30 cents per serving, compared to $4 to $5 for store-bought rice pudding. The technique made the most of both ingredients. The raisins released their sugars, while the rice's natural starch created a velvety, dairy-free texture. Modern families save approximately $55 monthly using this method for breakfast and desserts. Many report that their children prefer it over expensive packaged cereals, making it a win for both budget and satisfaction. While some families turned rice into dessert, others transformed everyday ingredients into hearty main dishes. Our next recipe reveals how potatoes and onions became a pie so satisfying it remains a farmhouse favorite to this day. Potato and onion pie. When meat was scarce, the humble potato and onion became the foundation of a meal that felt like a feast. This savory pie transformed simple root vegetables into a dish that kept bellies full and energy high. The ingenuity lay in its layering technique. Paper-thin slices of potato and onion carefully arranged with just a pinch of salt and pepper, ensuring every bite was rich with flavor. During the Depression, one pie cost just 12 cents and fed 8 people. Today, it costs about $3.50 total, 45 cents per slice, compared to $6 to $7 for store-bought meat pies. The secret was patience. Slow baking allowed the potatoes to turn tender while the onions caramelized, creating a natural gravy. Some families added a splash of milk or saved bacon drippings between layers when available, but even the simplest version was deeply satisfying. Modern households report saving up to $80 monthly by serving this as a weekly meatless main dish. And when even eggs became too expensive for pancakes, creative cooks found a way to transform breakfast forever. Eggless pancakes. When eggs reached 45 cents per dozen, American kitchens discovered a breakthrough breakfast solution. Eggless pancakes proved that golden, fluffy breakfast cakes didn't need costly ingredients. The secret lay in chemistry. Baking powder and a splash of vinegar created the same lift that eggs normally provided. During the Depression, one batch cost just 8 cents and fed a family of 6. Today, a batch costs about $1.20 total, only 20 cents per serving, compared to $1.50 for boxed pancake mixes or $12 for restaurant stacks. The technique was brilliantly simple. Dry ingredients mixed first, then liquid added gradually to prevent lumps. The result? Pancakes so light and airy, nobody even missed the eggs. Modern families report saving up to $70 monthly by skipping expensive breakfast mixes and restaurant outings for this easy homemade recipe. Creative cooks even mash bananas, applesauce, or pumpkin puree into the batter for variety. While some families reinvented pancakes, others turned to an even older American tradition. Our next recipe reveals how Native American wisdom helped create a breakfast that carried families through the hardest times. Johnny Cakes. Native American tradition met Depression-era necessity in Johnny Cakes, a cornmeal flatbread that had already stood the test of time but became essential during economic hardship. Unlike wheat flour, cornmeal remained affordable and stored well, making it a lifesaver when other staples ran low. The technique was deceptively simple. Hot water poured over cornmeal created an instant dough that fried into golden discs with crisp edges and tender centers. During the Depression, a batch cost just 6 cents and fed 8 people. Today, it costs about $1.50 total, just 19 cents per serving, compared to $3 to $4 for commercial pancakes. The brilliance was in its versatility. Served sweet with molasses for breakfast, savory with beans for dinner, or packed cold for lunch. Native Americans taught early settlers that adding a pinch of wood ash, a natural lye, made the corn's nutrients more accessible. Modern cooks achieve the same effect with a touch of baking soda. Families now report saving up to $65 monthly by incorporating this simple, nourishing bread into their meal rotation. While cornmeal made a satisfying breakfast, Southern Kitchen perfected another morning meal, one that transformed kitchen scraps into pure comfort. Our next recipe reveals how leftover fat and flour became a gravy worth fighting over. Biscuits and gravy. Southern kitchens mastered the art of turning simple pantry staples into breakfast gold with biscuits and gravy. Basic flour and save meat drippings became a meal that could fuel a family through a full day of hard work. The magic began with the biscuits, flour, lard or shortening, and buttermilk if available. But the true brilliance was in the gravy. Meat drippings and flour thickened into a creamy, rich sauce that made everything taste better. During the Depression, this entire meal cost just 11 cents and fed 6 people. Today, a homemade version costs about $2.80 total, just 47 cents per serving, compared to $8 to $12 at diners. The technique was passed down through generations, making a roux with drippings and flour, then slowly adding liquid until the perfect, velvety texture formed. Even the smallest amount of meat flavor could season an entire batch of gravy. Modern families report saving up to $90 monthly by mastering this technique for both breakfast and dinner. While some focus on stretching meat flavor, others turn to potatoes for sustenance. Our next recipe reveals how a humble spud became a crispy sensation that crossed cultural boundaries. Potato pancakes. When meat disappeared from dinner plates, potato pancakes stepped in as a golden, crispy salvation. Known as lax in Jewish kitchens and placky in Polish homes, these shredded potato fritters became a Depression-era staple, uniting cultures through ingenuity. The technique was pure genius. Grated potatoes released their starch, forming a natural binder that required only salt and onion for rich flavor. During the Depression, one batch cost just 9 cents and fed 8 people. Today, it costs about $2.50 total, just 31 cents per serving, compared to $6 to $8 at restaurants. The secret lay in the squeeze. Removing excess moisture ensured crisp perfection. Even better, the method worked with sweet potatoes, carrots, or any root vegetable on hand. Modern families save approximately $75 monthly by adopting this versatile technique for quick, budget-friendly dinners. Cornmeal mush. Cornmeal mush, one of the greatest triumphs of Depression-era ingenuity, proved that a single ingredient could create 3 distinct meals. This humble porridge transformed effortlessly from breakfast to lunch to dinner with just a slight change in preparation. The brilliance was in its adaptability. Hot and creamy for breakfast, chilled and sliced for lunch, then fried to golden perfection for dinner. During the Depression, a 5-pound bag of cornmeal cost just 23 cents and lasted 2 weeks. Today, the same amount costs about $3.50. only 15 cents per serving, compared to $4 to $5 for box cereals. The technique was simple but precise. Cornmeal stirred slowly into boiling water until thick, then flavored either sweet or savory. Chilled overnight, it became firm enough to slice and fry and save bacon fat or oil. Modern families report saving $80 to $100 per month by making this versatile dish a staple in their meal rotation. Dandelion salad. When grocery shelves emptied and fresh produce became a luxury, Depression-era families discovered a feast growing in their own backyards. Dandelions, those bright yellow weeds that suburbanites now fight against, became a lifeline in salad form. This wasn't just survival. It was about thriving through nature's unexpected generosity. During the Depression, these greens cost nothing but the time to gather them. Today, while bag salad greens cost $4 to $5, dandelion greens remain free for foraging, offering significant savings to resourceful families. The brilliance lay in proper harvesting. Young leaves, gathered before flowering, tasted milder and less bitter. Families learned to identify the jagged leaves, picking them in early spring when their nutrition peaked. Preparation was simple but crucial. Thorough washing followed by a brief soak in salt water removed any lingering bitterness. Some households added hot bacon dressing for special occasions, but most enjoyed them simply with a splash of vinegar and a pinch of salt. What's remarkable is a hidden nutritional powerhouse in these humble greens. 1 cup of dandelion leaves contains more vitamin A than a glass of milk, more vitamin C than tomatoes, and more iron than spinach. Modern nutritionists now praise what Depression-era cooks instinctively knew. Era families knew through necessity. These weeds were superior to many cultivated greens. Speaking of turning humble ingredients into nutritional gold, our next recipe reveals how military meals inspired one of the Depression's most memorable breakfasts. Cream chip beef on toast SOS. Military mess halls taught American families a crucial lesson in stretching protein. During the Depression, cream chip beef on toast, affectionately or infamously known as SOS, migrated from military bases to civilian kitchens as a budget-saving marvel. The genius lay in its ability to transform just a few slices of dried beef into a meal that could satisfy an entire family. During the Depression, this dish cost only 15 cents to feed 6 people. Today, a homemade version costs about $3.50 total, just 58 cents per serving, compared to $8 to $10 for restaurant breakfast platters. The technique required precision, creating a perfectly smooth white sauce from flour, saved fat, and milk, then folding in thin slices of dried beef. Thickness was crucial. Too thin wouldn't satisfy. Too thick wasted precious milk. Families stretched the dish even further by adding diced potatoes or peas, turning a simple breakfast into a hearty dinner. Modern households report saving around $65 per month by adopting this protein stretching technique. While some families found creative ways to extend meat, others discovered that common crackers could mimic one of America's most cherished desserts. Our next recipe shows how imagination turns simple crackers into a convincing apple pie. Mock apple pie, rich cracker pie. When apple orchards seemed as distant as prosperity, American ingenuity delivered what many consider the Depression's most astonishing culinary illusion. Mock apple pie proved that the comfort of apple pie was possible, without a single apple in sight. Using Ritz crackers or any similar biscuit, home bakers discovered that the right blend of cream of tartar, lemon juice, and cinnamon could recreate both the taste and texture of apple pie filling. During the Depression, this pie cost just 18 cents to make, compared to 75 cents for a real apple pie. Today, the cost is around $4 total, just 50 cents per slice, versus $7 to $8 for traditional apple pie. The magic lay in chemistry. Crackers softened in a carefully crafted sugar syrup, while cream of tartar provided the familiar tartness of apples. When properly spiced, even seasoned bakers struggled to tell the difference. The recipe became so popular that Ritz printed it on their boxes, where it remained for decades. Modern families, intrigued by this historical recipe, report not only savings but a newfound appreciation for Depression-era creativity. Milk and butter substitutes. In an era when dairy farms collapsed and butter became an unattainable luxury, American kitchens pioneered what could be considered the first dairy-free spread. This remarkable creation utilized readily available lard or beef tallow, blended with salt and a few drops of yellow food coloring to create a convincing butter substitute. During the Depression, homemade butter substitute cost just 7 cents per pound, compared to 45 cents for real butter. Today, the cost is about $2.50 per pound, an impressive savings compared to butter's $6 to $7 per pound price tag. The technique required careful temperature control, warming the fat just enough to evenly distribute the salt, then chilling it at precisely the right rate to mimic butter's consistency. Families discovered that adding a small amount of milk, when available, improved the texture, while a pinch of turmeric naturally deepened the yellow hue. This spread worked in cooking, baking, and as a table condiment, though it shined best in baked goods, where other flavors dominated. Modern homesteaders and dairy-free households have rediscovered this lost recipe, reporting monthly savings of $30 to $40 while avoiding modern processed margarine and artificial ingredients. Hoover Stew. When President Herbert Hoover's name became forever linked to this humble macaroni dish, though not as a compliment. Yet, Hoover Stew emerged as one of the most practical and filling innovations of the Depression era. Originally created for school lunch programs, this combination of macaroni, canned corned beef, and stewed tomatoes proved that institutional cooking could be both economical and nourishing. During the Depression, a single pot cost just 26 cents and fed 12 hungry students. Today, a homemade version costs around $6 total, just 50 cents per serving, compared to $3 to $4 for canned pasta meals. The preparation embodied efficiency. Macaroni boiled until tender, then blended with canned corned beef and stewed tomatoes to create a complete protein and carbohydrate meal. School cooks discovered that adding canned corn or beans stretched the dish even further, while boosting its nutritional value. The true genius lay in its adaptability. Any canned meat could replace corned beef, and various vegetables could be swapped in based on availability. Modern food banks and community kitchens still rely on variations of this recipe, noting that one pot can feed an entire family for less than the price of a single fast food meal. Budget-conscious households report saving up to $100 per month by incorporating this hearty one-pot meal into their rotation. These 25 recipes reveal more than just survival tactics. They showcase American ingenuity at its finest. In 2024, with grocery prices soaring 12%, and the average family spending over $1,200 per month on food, these time-tested techniques could save modern households as much as $5,000 annually. From transforming kitchen scraps into stone soup to baking cakes without eggs, each recipe demonstrates that creative cooking transcends time. Whether it's foraging dandelions for free salads or stretching a single pound of meat to feed twice as many, these methods provide practical solutions to today's economic challenges. Our great-grandparents didn't just endure tough times. They crafted a legacy of resourceful cooking that remains invaluable today. Their wisdom proves that remarkable meals don't require expensive ingredients, just knowledge and creativity. If you found value in these historical kitchen secrets, join our community of budget-conscious cooks. Subscribe and enable notifications for weekly demonstrations of these money-saving recipes. Share your own family's Depression-era dishes in the comments. Together, we're preserving this vital culinary heritage. Remember, great meals start with wisdom, not wealth.